Pee Wee Gaskins, featuring Donald Henry Gaskins. Full name, Donald Henry Parrott Gaskins, Jr. Crimes and sprees. Donald was known to commit dozens of crimes over the 4 decades, involving both juvenile offenses and murder. There are 15 confirmed victims from the hands of Pee Wee, though he had claimed there was apparently the coastal murders where he would murder over 100 people. There wasn't a specific target victim-wise, it was rather killing who he wanted, and whoever would disrupt his life, they would be dead in the hands of Pee Wee. Even when Donald was a child, he had committed crimes along with attempts of murders. In addition, he had raped girls apparently in his own age, it seems, along with theft and property crimes. It was reported he had escaped from maximum security facilities several times, specifically from South Carolina Penitentiary. Murder-wise, he would murder his friends, reportedly, neighbors, and even close relatives who were blood-related to him. In addition, he would attempt to murder his own classmate, along with minors that are significantly more younger than him. His final crime included murdering and bombing an inmate who goes by Rudolph Tyner. For this killing, he didn't kill with hate, but rather financial wealth, due to the fact he was hired by Tony Simo, whose father was murdered by Rudolph Tyner. Overall, the life of Donald was filled with heavy crimes and murders. The murder spree had lasted from 1969 until November of 1975 when he was arrested. Investigation. The investigation involving Donald was filled with unfortunate failures, along with delays and inability to trace the murders to the correct serial killer. People, ironically, despite his histories and victories of crimes as a child, they would not suspect Donald as the serial killer, due to the fact he was 5'4". In addition, he had a remarkably friendly demeanor. While the killings itself was highly calculating, there was no consistent pattern, victim-wise, leading to a chaotic profile being created, therefore making it difficult for the police and investigators to catch the correct suspect. There were small searches and investigations for the victims. However, the seemingly breaking point came in September of 1975. A girl named Kim Gehlken went missing, opening a major investigation and sparked a massive search. It was noted Gehlken had been last seen with Gaskins, leading to his arrest. However, a criminal associate named Walter Neely had confessed Donald was the true murderer and would even show them evidence, specifically leading the police to the setting where Donald dumped the bodies of his victims at. Quick note, Donald would dump the bodies of his victims in a swamp. Walter had explained he did not desire to be killed and only helped Donald to keep his life safe. It was discovered in the land near Donald's house in South Carolina. He created a private graveyard for each victim. Donald realized he was caught, leading him to confess, along with helping the police find the remaining bodies of the victims he remembered. Trial and court proceedings. Part 1. There were multiple trials involving the case for Donald. The court years spanning nearly a decade. The court especially focused on the case, the murder of Dennis Bellamy, due to the fact that murder case had the most forensic evidence available. In addition, it was originally supposed to secure a quick conviction. Despite the betrayal from his accomplice, he would plead guilty for 9 additional murders in exchange for 10 concurrent life sentences. He was then sentenced to Central Correctional Institution in Columbia, South Carolina. Prison life. Donald Henry Gaskins edition. in Central Correctional Institution in Columbia, South Carolina. Ironically, despite the details of his crimes, he was protected by the guards in the prison. He would even become a model prisoner inside the facility. One day, Donald received a call from a person, a grieving son, Tony Seymour, whose parents had been murdered by an inmate who was staying with Donald in the same prison, Rudolph Tyner. Tony had offered tons amount of money to Donald, and Donald happily agreed and pled a deal to murder Rudolph Tyner. It took months. However, Donald would orchestrate the death of Rudolph Tyner with a bomb he would somehow create. Tony had packed the materials to create a bomb into brand new shoes he claimed he would apparently gift to Donald. As said before, the guards trusted Donald. In addition, a pair of shoes did not raise any suspicion. Before the murder of Rudolph, it was reported Donald had snuck in some poison into the food of Rudolph. However, he would not die, instead get sick from the poison. In his cell, Donald would stuff with the C4 explosive and rigged it directly into the blasting cap. Then he would trick Rudolph. It was a homemade cup telephone that would allow, apparently, to communicate with each other in secret. When Donald went back to his cell, he would call Rudolph, share some certain instructions, specifically telling Rudolph to put the thing onto his ear. Then Donald would pull the trigger and cause the murder-explosion to occur, leading to the death of Rudolph Tyner. Trial and Court Proceedings Part 2. After the murder of inmate Rudolph Tyner, Donald would be forced to face the death penalty as he sat in the defense table with shackles, though it was a different outfit from the case of Deobra Redden, who jumped on the Nevada judge in Clark County Court. Anyways, the recordings of the phone calls between Donald and Tony had been recorded, leading to the call being used against him in court. Donald would not care or have a careless demeanor when he received the death sentence announcement. He would even deadly stare at prosecutor Harpootlian. Anyways, he was executed a decade later after the trial for the murder of Rudolph Tyner. Childhood. The childhood of Donald was an unfortunate time, filled with violence, neglect, and criminal behavior that was never stopped despite the several imprisonments. He was born from his mother, who goes by Eola Parrott, who was also in her late teenage years. In addition, his unknown father had abandoned him when he was not even a baby, in other words, when Donald was inside the stomach of his mother. His mother had nicknamed him Pee-wee due to his size difference between him and his surrounding peers. It was reported Donald would frequently be left in his home, as his mother would pursue her sexual relationships with other men. Donald had claimed he would eat dead snakes and reptiles as his food source. It was also reported Donald would be tortured with vinegar by his mother's boyfriends who had suffered from severe mental illnesses and aggression. In addition, it was reported one of her boyfriends forced Donald to drink a tab of kerosene, making him almost having to face his death. While he survived, he was left with chronic health conflicts. Even before high school had started, Donald would drop out of school and formed his own gang. He would then break into homes, engage in theft, and force children younger than him to engage in sex. Stealing financial wealth was seemingly his hobby as well, breaking into vacant homes around the neighborhood. Childhood, Part 2. Around when Donald was aged 13, he was severely bullied and teased by this certain girl. One day, that same girl bullied him, which led to an outburst from Donald. He would use a hatchet, then brutally beat her in the head, nearly killing her. There was then a backlash from the court, saying he was a terrible boy on beating a girl like that, which led him to being removed from his mother's care and sentenced to South Carolina Industrial School for Boys in Florence, South Carolina. Rather than helping him, he was victimized in sex from other men. In addition, he was frequently beaten up. He would escape from juvenile, then staying in a treehouse for months in a swamp, leading to him having a sense of social isolation persona before he turned into adult. He was often bullied at school too before he dropped out for his small stature. Personal life, potentially affecting their crimes and acts. When Donald turned 18, he married a female named Hazell Owens. Though the marriage did not succeed, it was reported Donald would act volatile, in addition having to travel between jail to home many times, which led to the divorce between them while he was serving in prison for the sentence of auto theft. Years later, on 1958, Donald married a young female named Sibyl. Together they had several children, including a well-known daughter, Henry Gaskins. Donald seemingly appeared as a hard-working father and a businessman. He would specifically repair cars, along with running a scrap metal business. Tragically, behind the closed doors, Donald would expose his children to severe violence along with physical abuse. He would take his children, specifically Shirley, into road trips around highways near the coastal areas. His friendly demeanor, along with his family man persona, really in a way shielded Donald from his crimes to get exposed and revealed. Pivotal events. Donald Henry Parrott Gaskins Jr. was born on the 13th of March, 1933 in Florence County, South Carolina. On 1946, the assault towards his hated teenage girl had occurred. On 1955, Donald escaped from South Carolina Penitentiary. On 1965, he began to commit with his killing spree, turning into a serial killer. He murdered his niece, Janice Kirby, on 1970. On 1975, during the investigation, 8 bodies was discovered in the grave Donald had made for them. On 1978, his original death penalty was commuted to 10 consecutive life sentences. On 1982, he would murder his inmate Rudolph Tyner. On September of 1991, he ate his final meal, which was a peach pie, hamburger, a hot dog, white beans, coleslaw, and a grape beverage, likely a grape soda or a juice. On a night in September of 1991, Donald had attempted to commit suicide, though he was soon recovered. Quotes from Donald Henry Parrott Gaskins Jr. You know, you're just like me. You like killing. I walked in the same path as God by taking lives and making others afraid. I became God's equal. Through killing others, I became my own master. It made me feel like somebody. Hello? I'm calling in for Tony. My name is Gerald McCormick. Tony, Gerald wanted me to call you. Said to tell you this is the doctor calling you. We give that son of a all of it but one dose, and all it's doing is making that son of a sick. We put in some damn buck for him to drink the other night, and he drank, and 2 more drank, and all it was made all 3 of them sick as hell. I come up with some, he can't be no damn making sick on it. I need 1 electric cap, and as much of a stick of a damn dynamite as you can get. Well, that'll be good. I'll take the damn radio and rig it into a bomb, and when he plugs that son of a bitch up, it'll blow him into hell. And just listen for the bang. I'll let my lawyers talk for me. I'm ready to go. Forensic inferences. The life of Donald was filled with crimes and violence, seemingly said he did not receive the proper parenting or education, really the help he needed. While people may say, you have to accept bullying at school, or nonsense like that, the case of Donald, from the bullying and hate, it grew a sense of rage within him. That atmosphere taught him how life works. It made him think specifically violence was okay, and it should be done. In other words, life during his life was violent. In other words, that is a normal action to do in his mind. He was isolated, bullied severely, turning his mind into a criminal other than school. Other than school, he was frequently abused and abandoned by his mother, along with her endless sprees of boyfriends. He didn't have anyone to rely on. He had to mostly do everything for himself. True, some people can use that as an opportunity to grow. However, some people cannot guide themselves properly, which was definitely the case for Donald. While not the most major reason, his consuming in kerosene likely damaged somewhere in his brain. This is also likely not the major reason. However, he lacked a sense of father figure. He did not receive the proper guidance, though that was said before. Anyways, Donald was really, in a way, raised by the criminal and troubling environment. That mindset of crimes had guided him throughout his life, leading with some triggers, turning him into a serial killer. I can suspect his prison life when he was a teenager did not help either. Overall, the life of Donald was filled with major difficulties, and his mental state was severely neglected and definitely damaged. Legacy and impact. The case of Donald Henry Gaskins Jr. remains apparently the meanest cases in the global history. Donald is one of the serial killers who received death penalty twice despite avoiding the first one. South Carolina changed their ways on handling dangerous fugitives like Donald. Maximum security was upgraded into the mail processing for prisons in South Carolina. Donald is considered one of the most power man, especially coming from his 5'4" height. People till this day debate whether Donald had killed over 110 individuals or not.